Everyone. So as he briefly mentioned, my name is Adrian Perez. It's an honor to come here and talk to y'all. And I was affiliated with YESS Institute back in my high school days. So today what I'd like to do is just talk about my time spent with YESS and how YESS protected me on this path that's currently led me to my life right now. So 7 years ago, I joined YESS as a junior, and now saying that, realizing high school 7 years ago, I'm starting to realize I'm a little old. But I joined YESS as a junior, and at first, I knew nothing about YESS Institute. I joined the class because it was easy. It was something to fill out my class schedule. And after about a week and being made aware that I was going to be a mentor, I realized that this class I had intended on being an easy walk-through thing and would require a lot more time than I had anticipated. But I stuck with it. I'm glad I did. And my time with YESS, it actually changed me, and it forced me to do a lot of things I never thought I'd be doing before. So the most memorable story I have from YESS is actually when I was assigned to David Carrasco as my mentee. And I knew David Carrasco years prior. He was a great friend. We played baseball. Our family were well familiar with one another. And so when we were first assigned this mentee-mentor relationship, I don't think either one of us exactly knew what was going to happen. So David probably thought, I was going to give him the home hookup, let him pass through his class very easily with minimal effort. And at first I did. I slacked as his mentor, but then a huge part about being a mentor is you get the grade reports. And with me, I was very competitive in high school, especially when it came to academics. And I saw his grade report, and it was poor to say the least. And I took that very personally. I'm like, his grades not only reflect him, but me as well. And so I actually did something I never thought I'd be doing. One day I sat with him and I called his mother. And it was a very awkward conversation, but got it done nonetheless. And the funniest thing happened is immediately after that conversation, David's mother called him, who she didn't know was sitting right next to me at the time. And I could hear her screaming, why is Kenoli calling me about these grades? I don't have time for this, figure this out. At the time, my nickname was Kenoli, and I passed long since then. It was a very funny interaction. Me and him both looked at each other, and he was obviously a little more pissed off at me, which was fine. But we realized that from that moment, it was going to be a lot more serious being this mentor-mentee relationship. And it turned out great. Now, fast forward to my senior year, it was a great time. I actually became the mentor leader. And junior year, I'm a mentor. I'm in charge of one, maybe two students. As mentor leader, you're in charge of an entire class, which would be up to 30 odd people. It's a huge step, but I was up for it. I was excited. And senior year was actually a very hectic but memorable time. I did everything that I could at North. I played through sports, was in jazz band, the drum line, and I actually participated in the drama club's production of Grease. But the most hectic time during senior year was definitely that scholarship college season moment, right? That crazy time where seniors are applying for scholarships and applying for colleges left and right. And I told my mother I wanted to go to the School of Mines. And that was a very awkward conversation because she looked at me with this face of defeat and she told me we couldn't afford it. There's no way we could afford mines. And I looked at her and I said, don't worry, I got this, I'll take care of everything. And at the moment, I was calm, collected, but inside I was freaking out because I had no idea what I was doing. I had to be shocked for my mother. So then I went to class that same day, went and said yes. And I saw this big poster with bold letters and it said, apply for Daniel Swim. And I remembered back to my junior year, the mentor leader at the time, she had applied for the Daniel Swim as well, and she got it. So that's when I started shifting my focus to Daniel Swim, and it basically became my second job. From start to finish, it was Daniel Swim, Daniel Swim, Daniel Swim. And luckily with all that hard work, I actually received the Daniel Swim live on 9 News. So it was an awesome time. And part of the Daniel Swim application process is you submit the initial application, then you do your series of interviews, right? And I want to thank the YESS Institute. I didn't at the moment, but I'm glad I have the opportunity now. They actually set up practice interviews for me to practice for that interview for the Daniel Swim. And I look back and I wish you guys could have seen me at that Daniels Fund interview because I killed it. I was confident, it was the best interview I had in my life. And it was a great feeling because after I walked out of there, I was like, I got it. So thank you to YESS for setting up those interviews, and that just goes to show a fraction of what they do for their students. But now let's move forward to post-graduation. I did attend the School of Mines on full ride thanks to the Daniels Fund, and I received my bachelor's in civil engineering, and then I received my master's in structural engineering in 5 short years. So it was a hard time, but rewarding nonetheless. And I have to fact check this, but my teacher at the time when I was a senior, he told me that I was the first student from North during his tenure to go to mines. And I think that's pretty cool, Now we're kind of shifting that culture, getting students from North to go to mines and these rigorous universities because we can handle it, But it's cool to think about that. And so during my years of college, I actually participated in tasks that required me to use my knowledge of emotional intelligence that I obtained from YESS. So my sophomore, my freshman year, I actually coached. I went back to North and I coached the wrestling team. I helped it as much as I could. I went back to Skinner, I helped coach the baseball team. And it's funny to think about because there are times where I prioritize coaching over school. One time I got a 42 on the test, and that was bad. But my baseball team lost by 1 run to West Academy, and that infuriated me. Especially going to North, we had that rivalry with West, and I didn't like losing to West. But I had the last laugh because my team ended up taking first in the division. It was a great time. And so now I'm going to fast forward to senior year of college, and I joined this organization called Hike for Help. And with that organization, I was actually able to travel to Nepal for a month, hike through the Himalayas, and hand deliver computers and iPads to schools and hospitals in the local villages. And that experience was eye-opening itself. That was my first 14er, and as you can imagine, I was not in shape for it, so it was kind of rough. But it was a great time, and I'll never forget my experience, and it changed something inside of me. Before, my goal was always to get a high-paying job because I want as much money as possible, and now here I am prioritizing, helping people less fortunate than I am, and I was grateful for that change, and it was me. So now we're going to go post-graduation in mines. I got my master's, finished in May of 2021. And so with that, I actually ended up getting a job this previous September with a structural consultancy firm called Martin. And they're great, I love my job. But I actually ended up quitting Martin, and my last day was April 15th. And so with that, I've actually joined a foundation called First Things Foundation, and I actually shipped out Monday. But they're gonna send me to Guatemala for 2 years. I'm gonna be volunteering my time out there any way that they need. I'll be teaching English, and helping develop a basketball court and sporting facility for the town. And I like to think back about this and my time with YESS, and without YESS, I don't think I'd be the same man that I am standing here today. So a huge shout out to YESS, thank you. And I think back in high school when they asked us, in 5 years, where do you see yourself? And at the time I said, oh, engineer, lots of money, fancy car, big house. And now 7 years later, I couldn't be further from that. And I'm actually really appreciative of it. And again, Carla, you might not always receive the things that you deserve, but coming from me, definitely 7 years is a little too late. But I want to thank you, the YESS Institute, for everything that you guys did for me, and allow me to come and speak to y'all this morning. Thank you.